All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Collector's Compass, the official podcast of Collectors MD, where we explore the intersection of mental wellness, intention, and collecting. I'm your host, Alex Efron, founder of Collectors MD. And today's episode is a really important one that I've been looking forward to. We're joined by Traylor Disbrow, an LPC-A who has spent years volunteering with alcohol and drug recovery groups and who brings a unique clinical lens to the world of collecting. Back in 2020, Traylor had his own wake-up call that shifted how he viewed the hobby. And since then, he's been paying close attention to the parallels between collecting, gambling-like behaviors, and other addictive patterns. Whether it's the dopamine rush of a big pull, the subtle red flags that can creep in when passion turns into compulsion, or the way marketing shapes our behavior without us realizing it, Traylor has seen firsthand how important it is to catch these moments early. He's also a big believer in the role both therapy and peer support can play in helping people find balance again. Today, we'll talk about what makes compulsive collecting so unique compared to other addictions, how to spot the warning signs before things spiral, and what it looks like when collectors and clinicians work together to create a healthier hobby. So, if you've ever found yourself wondering whether your collecting habits are still serving you, or you just want to better understand the mental health side of the hobby, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Traylor, great to have you, man.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate you having me, man. Excited to be here and discussing these topics. I'm looking forward to it.
Love it. Love it. And thank you for bearing with me as I got used to this new setup. As I was telling you before we went live, I finally made the move and upgraded our StreamYard account to the premium version. And like I was telling you, they just add all these bells and whistles, and it's tough to navigate. So we were actually in our other studio for our other podcast, messing around in there before we went live here. So I do apologize for those of you who are watching for being a few minutes late, but we are here now and we are super excited to get things underway. So I'm gonna kick it over to you to start things out. So for those of you who don't know you, for those watching who don't know you, can you share a quick snapshot of your background and sort of what brought you into the hobby? Maybe give listeners a sense of who you are, both personally and professionally. What's your career path been like thus far? What kind of work do you do within the mental health space now? And how did collecting first enter your life? Was it something from childhood or something you found later on?
Yeah, so my family is from the Illinois area. I grew up in South Carolina, but my dad's side of the family is from Illinois, Southern Illinois. And so I was born in 85. And so WGN, I think it's still around. I don't have cable TV now, but I think it's still around. But they would show Cubs games and White Sox games. And I have always been, it appeared to me the White Sox were getting shown less love and therefore less games are being shown on theirs. And so I've always been a big fan of the underdog. And so I was like, all right, my family's from Illinois. I can cheer for the White Sox. And so fell in love with the White Sox. Frank Thomas is my favorite player of all time. We had the same birthday, which I found out randomly while sitting in the back of a truck. These things happen in South Carolina. You kind of ride around in the back of pickup trucks. And so my dream card growing up has always been the no name on front, Frank Thomas card.
Love it.
And so, you grow up, you kind of go off to college, you kind of get embarrassed by collecting baseball cards and you're around girls, things like that. So I naturally kind of grew out of the hobby, probably like high school time. I started spending money on other things, going to movies, going to the mall, whatever you do in the 90s. And so I kind of naturally grew out of it. And I think that's probably a similar story for a lot of people. But I'll finish my collecting journey and then I'll jump back into my personal life a little bit. But COVID happened, and I probably have a similar story with a lot of other people with this. And I was sitting around at my house, because I already worked. I worked virtually at the time, which a lot of people probably did. And I was browsing Facebook one day, and I genuinely like cards that are unique and kind of have a story to them. And Topps Project 2020 came out, and I saw this card. I think it was an Ichiro by this artist, Ben Baller.
Yep, I remember the Project 2020.
And so, I'd always had a hankering for like flipping things, like making money off things. I've always just enjoyed that. And so this spiked my interest in multiple ways. Not only the card part of it, but also there was a limited run of these things. And
Right.
I kind of saw at that time what they were doing in the market. And so I'm assuming for me, part of it was greed. Part of it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can, buy a car for $20. It seems to come with I didn't even know what a one touch was at the time. I was back around screw down cases, man.
Yeah,
Apparently
man.
those ruined cards, supposedly. But so it came with a card and a little one touch, looked nice. And I could buy a Mark McGuire rookie that had been, redone by an artist. And also possibly make a lot of money from it. So I jumped in pretty quickly with it. I probably started May 27th. I still go to blowout forums probably about every week. I think it's the longest forum on blowout forums. It's called Tops Project 2020 is the worst product since 89 Fleer or something like that. And it's thousands of pages long because it's just the ups and downs. I think it's just a great snapshot of where the hobby went during that time. And so I got in a Facebook group and, all these people were talking about this. I mean, literally a card would be shipped to you. And as it's in the mail, it would go up 5, 6, 7 times in value. I mean, just crazy, just nuts stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think this is the time when checks were being handed out to people and they were just spending it on, whatever they wanted to.
Yeah.
And so May 27th. So I went from thinking, oh my gosh, and this is, this was the flipper in me. This wasn't the collector. This was the, oh my gosh, I can flip these cards and pay off my mortgage.
Right.
I went from one day to, holy crap, I now have to tell my wife that I've spent $15,000 in cards.
Right.
And I'm in education at the time. So and she's at home with our kids. And so we're fairly frugal people. So we had some savings, but it was a conversation I did not want to have. And I believe the first time we met, I have never had a suicidal moment in my life. And I had a moment where I remember it, like it was a 360 image where I went into my laundry room and I had that moment of like, I could end this now and be done with this. And it lasted for probably 5 or 6 seconds. And eventually I was like, that's ridiculous. I cannot do that. But those feelings were there. And thankfully I had a turn-off valve where I could shut things off. And a big part of that too, were people were returning things. Like people saw, so instead of the value going up, the value started going down as it was shipped out. And so, and so from that point, I kind of stopped after that. I had seen some YouTubers and I forget who was popular at the time. I think Gary V.
Sure. He's always popular.
Yeah. And I had never been into the Gary V stuff, but this is the first time I heard of him. I was like, oh, Gary V is going to talk about these cards. I'm like, I don't know who that is, but everyone says he's going to make me a lot of money. So let's hold on to these things. And so I don't think he ever did.
Yeah.
And so that brought me back in. I got out very quickly, and then I came back. I started dabbling back in after that with some more unique things that I genuinely like. And if the value went to zero, I wouldn't be upset, As far as my background with counseling goes, I went to school at University of South Carolina, graduated in 2010 with a counseling degree. I chose a school track. And a year after I started my job, my wife and I decided we wanted to move overseas and teach English in Korea for 4 years.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was great. It was a fun time. We missed a lot. And so we had our first child there. And thankfully I knew someone back in the States. I was working at a school because their school years are different than ours. They get out in March. And so I connected with that person here. I got a job here as a school counselor and been doing it ever since. And so we're 100% virtual, and they allow me some flex and freedom to do other things, which is wonderful. And so 2020, also during COVID, I decided, hey, my degree allows me to do, more therapeutic things, and working with kids virtually, it's very hard for them to connect with you. Mostly because most of them are coming to virtual school a lot of times because they don't want to be around adults. And so I'm just another adult that they don't want to talk to. So, so I took a test, NCE, and passed it. And then I've been in the counseling field, like from a therapeutic side, for about 2 years ish, 3 years ish. But I've been doing groups for a long time too. So yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, first of all, thank you for your honesty and vulnerability. Talking about some of these things obviously isn't easy, right? Mentioning the suicidal thoughts, that's something in the hobby, something that comes up in our weekly support meetings. And it's not just within our spaces that those conversations are happening. It's happening in other gambling related spaces as well. And it's incredibly difficult, right? It's heavy, it's personal. It can really feel like it doesn't sort of fit in a community built around fun and connection, right? But when someone opens up about having those sort of thoughts, especially early in their collecting journey, like you did, it's a powerful reminder, I think, why these conversations matter and why it's just so important to keep spreading awareness, the shame, the isolation, the pressure people can feel, right? All of that builds so quickly, and without a safe judgment-free space to be able to talk about it, things can really spiral, I think, for people internally when you're just stuck in your own head and just having these horrible thoughts. And so that's why it's just so important to meet these moments with compassion, listen without judgment, and let people know that they're not alone. So I think you saying that is something that hopefully will resonate with somebody else, and they'll have the courage to come forward and be honest and transparent and vulnerable with their loved ones and potentially Collectors MD. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, for sure.
And so like you covered a lot, obviously, with your collecting journey and your experience as a teacher, and then getting into sort of the mental health space. I want to take a step back. You reached out to Collectors MD a few months back, and I'm curious sort of what stood out about what we're doing. Like what possessed you to reach out when you first came across us? Like what caught your attention? Was it the mission? Was it the focus on peer support, the overlap between mental health and collecting, all of the above, something else? What made you feel it worth connecting?
Yeah. So my YouTube journey from 2020, when I started getting back into collecting a little bit, kind of started out with guys who like card pumpers, essentially. Can I mention names on here, or is that bad?
It's fine. It's
Okay.
fine.
So like guys like Jeff Wilson, and I feel like I have pretty good read on people, and I could sniff Jeff Wilson out from far away. And, he has a business, he does things like this, and has the ear of a lot of people. I went from there to Sports Card Radio. I like those guys, and then I think they stopped making content for whatever reason. And I wasn't really, I know I lean more on the realistic side. I won't say negative side, but I started seeing these card prices, and I think Whatnot is starting coming around, and I would see breaks on YouTube. I'm like, who has this much money to buy a National Treasures box and just rip it? Like I was just amazed at the amount of money that was spent, and so I was genuinely intrigued. I mean, I know there are people that make a lot more money than me, and so they can do what they want with their money. But I was just genuinely intrigued of where's the other side of this? Like there has to be two sides of this coin, because I remember living through the 90s and everything went belly up. And so I was wondering, okay, the value, like even from a layman person in economics, you can see the value of this stuff dropping. Like the new rookie class in football.
Right.
Well, I guess it's Cam Ward and some other people
right.
Okay,
this next class, but everybody's still focused on the last class, and that's how it always is. But I always say it's like a bubble within a bubble, right?
Yes, but bubbles are everywhere. And so from Sports Car Radio, sorry, I'm getting off track, but Dan the Card Man mentioned you, and I feel like he's a very honest guy. I think he's from Australia. I've always liked his content. Just little short snippets of what's going on the back end of the hobby, like what's going on behind closed doors. And so And I'm genuinely curious of that because I like the human condition, and I like I don't like it, but I'm intrigued by it.
Sure.
So the card scanning, the giving loaded boxes to people, like within me, and just being on the psychological end of things, I'm like, I know those things happen.
Right.
Um, I don't have proof of it, but when money is involved, this stuff's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so I heard about you through Dan the Card Man. I think he made a comment about what you guys are doing, and so I was always just curious, like where is the help for these people that are losing marriages, losing kids, um, no longer have joy in coming home and being with their kids, but most of their joy is found in going on whatnot late at night and getting that dopamine rush. And since they can't get it from this $100 box, they're now going to get it from this $1,000 box. And so that was really, uh, when he talked about you and what you guys are doing, I was like, oh, there's a site here. There's a place for people to be real and for people to connect. And like you said before, and I'll probably mention again, no one wins this battle fighting it. You're not going to Billy Coggins this thing,
Yeah.
And I imagine a lot of people that open up cards are probably former athletes. And so they probably try and just strong arm their way through the addiction.
Yeah.
And it's impossible. I've never met anyone in my years of counseling that is able to just fight their way through addiction and just beat it like that. They have to
Right.
come out with open arms, right? And bring people
100%.
along. So
Yeah.
I've done a few through them.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you saying all that. Dan, the card man, he's great. I've connected with him since he's given us a shout out. I think it's been twice now. He's actually brought up Collectors MD and has generously, spread the good word and have encouraged folks to reach out if they're experiencing these things like addiction and sort of burnout. And so very grateful for that and for all of the other individuals within the space who have sort of given Collectors MD the spotlight and a platform and a vehicle to carry this message. And you brought up the fact that you've been looking around and you've wondered, where do people go for this sort of help? And that's the crazy part. Like, this isn't a brand new conversation, right? People in the hobby, in this industry, and not just in the sports card or trading card hobby, but any vertical for that matter, any collecting related vertical or means of or a platform where you can end up spending impulsively. People in these spaces have been quietly talking about the mental health side of overspending, mental, emotional, and financial burnout from these various hobbies for a long time, right? So Collectors MD isn't reinventing the wheel here. The difference is, instead of letting those conversations happen in the shadows or just sort of fade away, we're actually doing something about it, and we're giving folks a platform, a tangible space that they can come to and speak about from their personal experiences, from their lived experiences, what they've been going through. And so it's really just intended for people who can talk honestly, openly, be heard, get the right kind of support that they're looking for. And so we're doing a lot. And it's beyond the weekly meetings now. We do have our Wednesday night meeting. Tomorrow night we're actually hosting our 16th consecutive, which I'm really proud of. We've been seeing anywhere from 15 to 20 people showing up now, which is amazing. In between these meetings, we have a group chat, which is actually starting to sort of outgrow itself. We're getting too many people now, and so we're sort of transitioning over to Discord, which is something that one of the members has been helping me with. But we're getting that set up this week as well. We have our tools and resources. We have a recovery guide that we use as our foundation for recovery that we reference in every single peer support meeting. We have a hobby dictionary to help people sort of stay in the know and be educated with their collecting journey or throughout their collecting journey, and also for folks like parents who have no clue what their kids are getting themselves into. It kind of gives them a little bit of insight into the hobby and the hobby language, so to speak. We have an industry reform initiative proposal that lives on our website that serves as sort of a standard or a benchmark for platforms and manufacturers to hopefully take inspiration from and start adapting some of these ideas that we've been talking about into their user flows and experiences. We also put out daily content, daily reflection, which is basically a journal entry that allows people to take a step back and reflect. That we publish every single day. We have our monthly collector spotlight. We have 2 podcasts now, so we're doing so much in such a short time that is giving folks a vehicle, an opportunity to carry this weight that they might have been holding back or sitting with by themselves for so long. And so it's just been a beautiful thing to watch. And all of this is it's so much bigger than me and Collectors MD for that matter. Like I said, this is a conversation that's just been happening for far too long. And now that there is a platform, a space that people can come to, and have these tough conversations, it's just been really incredible to be a part of. So again, I'm really grateful that folks are starting to see Collectors MD for what it is and spreading the message, and folks like you are coming across us, and we're having these conversations that again are just so long overdue. So I want to talk about sort of your story and your perspective a little bit more. When you had reached out, I had brought this up in the beginning of the show. You mentioned 2020 was a wake-up call for you. Can you take us back to that time in terms of like what exactly happened, what was going on in your life, in your collecting journey? I know you had kind of touched on it when you first were introducing everything, but can you go into a little bit more detail about what specifically happened that made you pause and sort of reevaluate your relationship with the hobby?
Yeah. So kind of looking at this from a therapeutic lens too, which I'll talk about later. At the time, my role as husband, father, obviously was to provide for my family, my kids. I think we just had our second child at that time, about 2 years before that. So we had 2 kids. We were doing fine financially, but in your head as a father, you're always thinking, okay, what's the next thing that can make my family's life easier? And I'm always thinking of that, but in like a time sense. That's kind of how I've always wanted to do that, like maximize my time. And so the Project 2020 cards seemed to me like an easy thing. And so I fell into the common mistake that, I can make a lot of money quick and things are going to be very easy. And that's usually a flawed logic. And so what had happened was I forget the exact date, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I forget the date. I saw an ad on Facebook and it was like, oh, okay, I have some extra money to spend. Let's see what happens here. I'm not throwing anything away because these cards seem to be on the rise. Like I'd always thought that baseball cards were a waste of money. Like I'd always known that. Like I grew up and I got $20 to go to the local flea market and buy cards. And I would usually buy, I'd buy 1 pack of Flair and then I'd buy some of the cheaper stuff. So I would get all the cards I needed. And so I still had that thought going into this. I still recognized that this is cardboard. It's not an investment. It'll be a quick flip. And hopefully I won't be left holding the bag on this stuff, which is a very selfish thing to think. But it's kind of unfortunately how the hobby has morphed, like completely morphed in that sense. I never see anyone like keeping cards anymore. It's always like, how much can I get for this? How will this
everybody's out for the quick flip. Everybody's out for the profit.
And so I probably spent, I was buying stuff off eBay. I think I bought the number 2 card, Sandy Koufax. And that's what really hooked me. I bought that card for probably $200 from a guy in a Facebook group. As it arrived to me, within 5 days, it went up to $1,000. And I thought I figured out.
How much did you say you paid for it? 200.
200. I thought I figured out the meaning of life.
What caused it to?
It was. I don't know. I think it was a big
That's
pump and
wild.
dump, honestly, like looking
Yeah.
back on it. Because
Yeah,
there
you
was
know,
clearly,
I apologize for cutting you off, but I have to say this. You're not the first person who's brought up Sandy Koufax as being like the catalyst to
okay.
their yeah,
But it wasn't vintage Sandy. It was,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was a Project 2020.
No, no, the
Um,
same thing with with this other guy. His
oh, really?
the card that got him sucked in was one of those retrofractors from Bowman. It was a Sandy Koufax auto number to 10 or something that he hit
Oh,
and he sold for like 10 grand and he was hooked.
whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that'll hook you for sure.
yeah,
Um, so at that point, I was like, okay, I'm the smartest person alive. So I'm just going to buy all
right,
these
right,
things and, fully not recognizing other people have these same thoughts. And also fully not recognizing there's a company that wants to sell you cards. And so May 27th happened, which is also my birthday. And, things have been going great, but you could start like I'm not an anxious guy, but I was very anxious because I was going to be holding a big bag for me, at least probably $10,000 to $12,000. And May 27th happened and Topps released this King Griffey Jr. rookie card from, I think, 91 Topps traded or something like that, or 90 Topps traded. And it sold, like, most of them have been doing like 2,000, 4,000, 6, like gradually climbing. This one
sure.
sold 100,000 copies.
Wow.
And just everything, the bottom dropped out of everything.
Yeah.
And so everyone's trying to sell their stuff now. It's a rush to the bottom on eBay,
Right.
Facebook groups. Everyone's canceling sales. Everyone's canceling purchases. Everyone's returning things for a scratch case. I really think a book should be written about this time. I mean, it was wild and crazy,
Yeah.
at least for the card
Crazy, man.
market. That's wild and crazy you can get. And so that's kind of so after that, after I gotten out of that, after I had the anxiety of that, I realized I don't have to treat cards this way. Like if I'm going to step back into this, and I probably took a 6 or 8 month hiatus from it, but I realized my passion, not my passion, but the feeling I got whenever a UPS worker would come to my house, they would bring baskets of cards to me, like one single card in a little poly mailer, baskets of these things. And so every single time I ripped one open, dopamine hit. Okay, I can sell that for that. Dopamine hit. I can sell that for that.
Yeah.
And I realized after all this had gone over and washed over, that I could get that same feeling by just opening a 92 Fleer Michael Jordan card. If that's
Right.
$3, like the same feeling is there.
Right.
And because you lose it pretty quickly, it's there, then it leaves pretty quickly.
Yeah. It's fleeting.
Very fleeting. And so from that moment on, I realized that I really like collecting stories and things that I liked a lot, and moments from my childhood. And I brought a couple things if you want to see what I kind of collect now.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I got this. I love Halloween. This is a Michael Jordan kind of a collector's choice Halloween. Something you'd hand out at Halloween, probably in 96, I think this is when this was. But you have a Michael Jordan in the back of it. Isn't that cool?
Is that sealed?
Yeah, it's sealed. Isn't that
Wow,
cool?
that's super cool. Yeah.
And I love
This
Halloween.
is
So
what this stuff is all about, man. Like collecting with a purpose, collecting with intention, not chasing after what everybody else, all the hype beasts are after, what Jeff Wilson and some of these other influencers are telling you that you have to invest in or rip. It's all about collecting what you like, and sharing that with your loved ones, your kids, your siblings, your friends, your community, and it's so great to see. What else do you have in the grab bag?
So this isn't card related, but it's it's Super Nintendo related. This is a sealed, like Super Nintendo controller, which I just think is cool.
You got Mario and Yoshi on there.
Yeah.
Is that like a special edition or anything?
No, it's just sealed.
That's super cool. You got Donkey Kong on the side.
You think of how many of these
it reminds me. So, I mean, I grew up in the 90s. You did too, right? You mentioned you graduated in 2010. So just 2 years before me, right?
Well,
I'm
I graduated
35.
high school in '03, so
Okay.
that was, yeah. I really grew up
So
in the '90s.
yeah. I remember when they
Kind
came
of
out
grew.
with the NES minis, like the sort of the remakes back in like I don't know 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
And then they did the same thing with Super Nintendo. I don't know if they ever got to the N64, but I remember buying that thing from Best Buy or wherever, Amazon. And at the time, I was living in Hoboken, New Jersey, with a few roommates. We would always load that thing up and just go to town. My wife got into it at one point. Yeah, those were good times, man. I mean, it really takes you back to the simpler times. It's all about like the nostalgia, and like that's something we talk about a lot. These
Yeah.
platforms and manufacturers really know how to scratch that itch and bring back things from a time that I think a lot of us just miss in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and that can be challenging, right? To combat when you see something that comes out, or a new set, or a new you know product that sort of pays homage, or is like a retro of something that you really enjoyed or appreciated during a special time in your life. It's hard not to say yes to those things. So that's an interesting topic that we might have to table for another conversation. Um, awesome, man. Did you have anything else that you want to do to show and tell?
So, I mean, I think I showed you this little Charlie Chaplin theater card,
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
then this guy, an old Lego set that's sealed. I like the seal. Like
Yeah,
the artwork on this is just beautiful to me. So,
that's super cool.
but this connects me to
It's
that time, like cards does to me.
right.
So,
Legos is an interesting one. My nephew is obsessed with Legos, and it's always about what's the next Lego set that he's going to get, so he can rip it open and build it. And so, my wife's company owns an F1 team, Williams Racing, and she
yeah,
recently went to a race. I think it was in London, and while she was there, she was able to access this special edition Williams Racing Lego set, and so we bought it or she bought it for our nephew and brought it back, and gave it to him at one point. I forget what the occasion was, but he was just so hyped to rip it open and build it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if he lets this thing, you know, sit and like keeps it sealed, who knows what it could be worth down the line. But that's just like how our sort of collectors' minds work, and like
yeah,
that's not how it should be. Like the
no,
kids should be able
yeah,
to like just rip it
play with
open
it.
with
It's
pure
a toy.
joy, play with it exactly, and like that's the part of the collecting and the whole concept of enjoying a tangible item that sort
Mhm,
of we lose track of, right?
for sure.
So, all right, we'll try to get back on track here, but definitely
Sorry.
want to. No, this is great. These are the conversations, or sort of the tangents that make this show, make these conversations, I think, so relatable for a lot of people. But I want to pivot back over to sort of your experience. You've worked with alcohol and drug recovery groups, right?
Yep.
When you look at collecting through that lens, what similarities and what differences do you notice? Like from your experience in addiction recovery work, what patterns are you seeing that feel familiar in the hobby, or in collecting, or maybe in even spending? And where do they overlap? And where do they diverge in terms of things like triggers, behaviors, and impacts?
I think firstly it's how people view themselves. I work at a place called Oliver Gospel Mission. It's a place downtown Columbia where I'm from. And they are a recovery treatment program for alcoholics and for drug rehab as well. And my goal there, anytime I see someone on a Thursday, is to show them that they're valuable and that someone cares for them. And if I meet that while also hopefully doing some therapeutic work with them, then I've accomplished my goal. Most of these guys were previously homeless, and so most of them have very low self-esteem, and so they come in already wearing a weighted vest with who they are, how people view them, a trench coat, if you will. And
Sure.
so I try and reframe how they think of themselves and how they talk about themselves, because these guys are sick, man. And so it's like if my child came to me at night and threw up on me in the middle of the night, I would be, and my first reaction would be, what the crap happened? And there'd
Right.
probably be some anger, but I'd quickly move to, no, you're sick. I want to care for you. Um, you're not a bad person for being sick, right? So you kind of
Right.
take morality out of it a little bit, at least for me. And so I think people that are sick uh, tend to want to tell other people how sick they are, or not tell people how bad they are as a person, or they're embarrassed or ashamed. And shame typically flows from that. And so I see the same thing with on the collectors side as well, or not the collectors, but what you're doing as well with these guys. I don't know if you have any girls in the program, um,
We've had a
but
few women come through for sure.
okay, sweet. So I see that. I haven't been able to join a meeting, but I'm assuming it's the same kind of thing, where you have it's probably like GA as well, where if you're not completely honest and open, and you kind of tell half truths, and you try and kind of bounce around things and say, and you try and manage it, and your spouse or your friends don't know, or um, whoever's close to you doesn't know the full story,
Right.
um, you're probably not taking it seriously. And until you're ready to take it seriously, it's going to be very hard to get help. I would say
Right.
it's nearly impossible to get help and to
Right.
get treated, Um, and also, uh, you can't do it alone. You
I
can't
couldn't
you
agree
can't will
more.
you
Yeah.
can't will yourself to it. Um, like I was mentioning before, I'd imagine most of the guys and women that do this have some form or some background with sports. Um, and with sports, or with even just losing weight, I'm gonna calories in, calories out. I'm gonna exercise my butt off until I lose 10 pounds or whatever it is, and I will stop eating, whatever people do.
Yeah.
And with this, you can't do it. You can't do it, man. And it has to be. You have to get real with it. And you have to lay your cards out on the table. Excuse the pun, actually pun intended.
Yeah.
And let people know where you sit and
Right.
where it is. If you've spent $50,000 uh, opening up packs, breaking with whatnot idiots, um, that has to be laid on the table. And if it's just a conversation of, yeah, I have a problem with, I've spent some money with opening packs of cards. If it's just
Right.
that, then it's going to be hard to get into full recovery.
Yeah.
And it's a slow process. I think it's
Yeah.
it's it's going to be slow, and I think people beat themselves up over how slow it is.
Sure.
Um, and so these things take years, and like,
It's a life. We say it's a lifelong commitment.
yeah. And some of these guys fight for the next second. Some of these guys fight for the next 5 minutes. Some of these guys
Yeah.
fight for the day. Some of these guys
Yeah.
fight for the week. And so everyone's along a different process
Right.
in
Everybody's at
recovery,
a
right?
different stage in their journeys. And we say all the time, just getting through the day for some folks might be a small victory in itself, and stacking up these small wins. Each brick is the foundation of your entire sort of road to recovery.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you just have to keep stacking up those small wins, and take it one step at a time. Because if you look up that vertical mountain and say, I'm going to climb this thing and get to the top within a week, like, you're just kidding yourself. It's a slow, tedious process. And I think you brought up a lot of really good points. Like, being honest and transparent about addiction is one of the hardest, but like the most important steps in recovery, right?
Yeah.
That's why they always say, like, the first step is admitting you have a problem. When
Yeah.
we keep it to ourselves, we stay stuck in isolation and shame and secrecy, and that's exactly where the problem starts to sort of manifest. And the truth is, we just can't heal alone. We heal in
Yeah.
community. We heal in group, where people understand what we're going through, right?
Yeah.
And where we can share without judgment, and where we're reminded that we're not the only ones carrying this weight. And in the hobby specifically, just like in any other addictive space, that kind of openness can be the turning point that shifts someone from struggling in silence to starting to heal. Like I've
Mhm.
seen firsthand some of these people that we bring into the meetings and into the group chat, people who are becoming acclimated to our program and what we offer. I see a sense of excitement. I see a sense of hope. Like they found something
Yeah.
that will deter them from these patterns or these bad habits that they've gotten so accustomed to and have had such a hard time breaking free from. And so yeah, it's so incredibly important to find your safe space and to find a community of individuals, peers who can see you for who you truly are, and who can also relate to what you've been through.
Yeah,
um
exactly.
and I think it applies across the board, regardless of where you're at in your journey, and whatever your vice is, whether that's drugs, alcohol, gambling, collecting, spending. Everybody has their vices, and everybody goes through recovery and addiction differently. And so we just have to be conscious of that and empathetic of the folks that are really, really having a tough time with it, and battling demons in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So was there a moment where you realized that collecting specifically could become problematic for some people? Like you mentioned earlier, there wasn't a space that you could find for people to go to, and like it obviously registered with you at one point or another that collecting or the hobby was just as insidious as some of these other addictive things like drugs, alcohol, and gambling. But was there a specific person, maybe a story, a situation that made you realize this hobby can go beyond a harmless pastime? And what stood out to you about that moment?
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a collection of moments. I I watch Jab's Family sometimes.
Hmm.
I think the last pack of cards that I had bought has been probably 3 years ago, and I really like the Topps, like, Christmas blaster pack. I just like those cards. I love Christmas, I love holidays, and they're cheap. Um, and so, but I realized after 2020 that I could just watch other people open up cards, and I'd realize how much money people are losing, and it would deter me from doing this.
Sure.
Um, and so I think I just started seeing comments from people uh, that would say, man, that was $700 down the trash right there. Like, why
Yeah.
would Tops put in this random no name person in a $700 box of Tops Dynasty or whatever it was?
Right. Right.
And I was like, yeah, but is anyone learning from this? Like, is this just kind of where the hobby is now? And you know, 5 years ago, I think it was probably 5 years ago, maybe longer. I remember when college football, NFL, you couldn't gamble in NFL, and it was like no teams in Vegas. We'll never have a team in Vegas. And then within like a year, I think they signed with DraftKings, and then the team was in Vegas. It's like,
Right.
and gambling's like everywhere. And so
Everywhere.
I think we live in this very unique time where, uh, you know, you have access to unlimited money, unlimited credit, maybe not unlimited for some people, but a lot of credit,
Hmm.
and you have something in your pocket where you can just gamble whenever you want. And so, and there's really no, I mean, there's some regulations, but and this, people in GA, if you want to find a way to gamble, you can find a way to gamble. Even if you tell casinos, I'm off limits here, I'm not coming in this casino anymore. You have to have the right person that knows you there, and so I think it's just this culmination of reading headlines of 200, I think it's like $200 billion or something like that was spent on sports gambling like 2 years. It was something crazy.
Gross.
Um, and I have kids that are growing up in this. And I've started to see where it's unique to not gamble on sports games.
Right.
Even just like I get it. I think the story that people like to tell is like it makes the games more interesting. I'm like, I guess like I get that part of it. I get it, but
Right.
it's also
All about the
really
excitement.
highly addictive. And so I think all those things kind of culminated where I was like, there has to be a breaking point in this. Like, what's what's the line of demarcation here where people get fed up just losing thousands of dollars and they stop? Because I know everyone does not have that turnoff valve, and that's why you guys have groups on Wednesday sometimes, right? Or 16 weeks
Yeah.
in a row. I possess that, thankfully, and that happened for me in 2020. But I'm genuinely concerned as a therapist of thinking, where is this going? Like it's money flowing into the pockets of fanatics. I don't know how much money breakers make. I don't, they can't. I don't have no idea. But Topps isn't looking out for the collector. I just know that they want to get as much money as they possibly can.
Right.
And yeah, I see someone mention Nationals. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised at the amount of people at National. But it looks like a lot of it was like whatnot breaks and things like that.
Yeah. That's the conversations we've been having lately. Yeah, I'll touch on that. Why don't you finish your thoughts?
But yeah, so I think it's just a culmination of things, kind of where I think like a healthy fear for my kids, and other kids, because I work with high schoolers as well. And so just recognizing like there are legitimate predators out there to get every single dime from you and give you nothing in return.
Yeah.
And they couldn't care less about you. They don't care about you. They really don't. And you're not in their club, like it's, and if you get an awesome card, they'll make another one next year the exact same way.
100%. Yeah, you brought up something that I actually was having a conversation with my parents about recently, and that's the whole concept of sports betting and how it sort of increases the experience for people. It creates a sense of excitement and dopamine. And this was a daily reflection that I published. I think it was on Saturday or Sunday. It was over the weekend after I had this conversation with my parents the night before. I was like, I got to write about this. And so basically, what we touch on here is that investing in sports cards, collectibles, or even the stock market taps into a powerful sense of connection, right? It feels like having a sort of a personal stake in someone else's success. And the same thing applies for watching a sports game and gambling on it. You feel like you're a part of the game, and it just makes it that much more exciting. And sort of that same emotional link intensifies with sports betting, where every play suddenly carries more weight because money, pride, and identity are on the line, right? And this blend of financial risk and emotional investment creates a dopamine fueled rush that can be thrilling in moderation, and the brain rewards each win or game with chemical hits that keep us chasing the next one, seeking validation and a sense of belonging. And that's why these feelings are just so fleeting. You feel the win, you feel the dopamine hit momentarily, and then suddenly it's gone and it's on to the next. And I think like there's two sides to this. There's people who can control it and who don't have sort of impulsive like personalities and don't fall into these cycles or these loops. But then there are those with addictive tendencies, maybe a history of gambling or difficulty setting boundaries, where these same mechanics can lead to, again, really dangerous behavior, dangerous cycles. And the key, I think, is recognizing your own personal limits, setting clear boundaries, and remembering that being part of the action doesn't necessarily have to mean risking everything. Entertainment is really healthiest when you're in control and enjoying, the highs. Is okay to an extent, but you really need to make sure that you're protecting your well-being before, all of this sort of stuff, the ride itself, ends up just consuming you and taking over. And so if you do feel like you have those addictive tendencies, or you might be someone who's susceptible to addictive behaviors or patterns, it's just so incredibly important to take self inventory and assess the situation, make sure that you are looking out for yourself and creating those boundaries and setting those limitations before things spiral, before things get too late. And so that's, another thing we always bring up about the hobby, about sports cards, about these breaking platforms, that none of these guardrails exist. Whereas like in the gambling worlds, within those apps. You can self-exclude. I'm self-excluded from gambling. I can't gamble within, an app in the states of New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania because I, was taking advantage of the tools and resources that are provided to me from those platforms. That does not exist in the world of, the hobby,
Yeah.
our industry. And it absolutely should, because these apps are engineered to create a sense of, addiction, keep you coming back, chasing that dopamine rush. And so this is something that we are actively trying to change, reform, is so incredibly important in this space. And we need the platforms and the manufacturers to step up and start implementing some of these changes before it's too late. And it's incredible because you would think that the first thing that a company like Fanatics or whatnot would look out for is the health and safety of their consumers, right? And it's amazing that it hasn't been acknowledged by anybody, by the folks making the key decisions, by the C levels, by those that are at the helm steering this whole thing. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to spread awareness, and then also create those tools and resources, maybe artificially if needed. Things like Gamban, which is one of our partners, which is basically an app blocking software. It's an app that you could download and prevent yourself from going into Whatnot or Fanatics or Loop or any of these apps that might be a trigger for you. So it's all sort of intertwined, and that's why I think your experience with all of these different worlds of alcohol and drugs and gambling, you have a very unique perspective and I think skill set that many people don't necessarily have or might not be able to understand. So again, just really appreciate your perspective on all of this. Getting into the mental health insights for people who might not necessarily understand the full scope of how this all works. Can you explain, maybe in layman's terms, how the dopamine and reward loops might show up in collecting? Can you break it down for us in simple terms? What's actually happening in the brain when someone's, let's say, chasing a card, opening packs, going after that big hit or maybe case hit insert, and why does it feel so good? And why can it become so addictive for people?
Yeah. So, our brain, our feelings typically are supposed to carry us through a day, right? So it's supposed to get us to the next day. And so you see this with gambling a lot too, where people can't get away from it because their feelings are telling them it feels good. I want to make it through the day and feel good. And even though tomorrow it's going to feel terrible, I still my feelings are telling me it's going to feel good.
Right now,
um,
yeah.
and so obviously dopamine is it's kind of these it's a rush of happiness, a rush of joy, a rush of all the things that feel good to the body, right? So when I
Right.
go and drink a Diet Coke, I get a kind of a dopamine rush from that because it's, man, all these sensors are going off. It's like this feels nice. This feels good. I'm rewarding my body with something good.
Right.
And I know it will not feel good the next day.
Right.
And so in that moment, my body wants those things because I've trained it to react that way to it. Right. And so um, I think the same thing is happening with sports breaks. So you go in there. I don't honestly, Alex, I have never done like a whatnot break. I know those would not be good for me. I've never done a break in general. But I'm assuming you go in there, you have a community somewhat. Maybe some are
Yeah, I
first
mean,
responders.
you have a live chat, you have a sense of camaraderie,
Okay.
people joining the break, then there's, bystanders, people just watching, and participating in the chat,
Yeah.
maybe cheering people on, or just,
Spend more
trolling,
money.
or
Yeah.
like, but then you also have the host that
Yeah.
is running the stream, that is operating as the breaker, the entertainer, the marketer, the dealer, all in one, right? And then you have all of these overlays on whatnot and fanatics that creates this casino-like environment
Mhm.
that keeps you sucked in, it's engineered to keep you chasing, to keep you
Yeah.
coming back, even if you hit big. And that's a huge part of the cycle. And a lot of folks that we have joining our community have been sucked into that cycle, and some of them have spent tens of thousands of dollars in one sitting.
Yeah.
So it really is insidious, and
It's a casino-like floor, right? But with
more or less, yeah. And
yeah,
it's all under the guise of like childhood, nostalgia, right? Like
yeah,
it's all, oh yeah, it's just cards at the end of the day. Like I'm not going to become addicted to this,
mhm.
right? But like it's on your smartphone, it's in front of you, they catch you at your most vulnerable moments, and they just keep you swiping. So yeah, man, it can be so incredibly dangerous. It's such a slippery slope, and I don't recommend you even checking it out, because so many people just download the app to check it out, and just like a gambling app, you might get like um, credit off the bat, something like a deposit match, or a free spin. And once they hook you, it's very, very hard to walk away.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen who were the guys? There was a Trevor Lawrence downtown. I forgot their names. They're kind of crazy. And
Backyard breaks.
yes, I've seen a couple of their things, and
Yeah.
I can understand how it's kind of like this big bro culture that comes together and spends a crap load of money.
Right.
But all right, what's this gonna say? Because good experience with them. Yeah. So dopamine obviously is that reward system that our brains have. It's a very good
Right.
thing. It's a very great thing. And so unfortunately, your body wants more of this, right? So it develops a resistance to. It's kind of like riding a roller coaster for the first time. You ride it, holy crap, that was so scary. You ride it again, not so much, and then you need to go to a bigger thing to experience a more of a pleasure. Um, and so, unfortunately, what this can do, and what I've seen from my side of things, is that uh, because you get into this addictive cycle with whatever it is, with cocaine, with gambling, with whatever, it starts to remove joy from you from other parts of your life.
Right.
Uh, and so, coming home to your kids is not as joyous as it once was.
Right.
Making love with your wife is not as joyous as it once was, because you're
Yeah.
thinking about, holy crap, this was much better than that,
Right.
and I need a bigger fix from sports cards or gambling or cocaine or whatever it is.
Isn't there like some sort of meter that basically I don't know what the right word is to use, but there's like a score system that assigns like a value for each one of these sort of pleasures in life, and like chasing that dopamine, hitting that big card, or winning a bet or something like that is like up, way up here. It's like up
Yeah,
there with enjoying your favorite meal and stacks and all of these other things that also bring joy and pleasure.
yeah, absolutely. And so there's different levels of dopamine hits that you can get, and then obviously there's some synthetic drugs out there that are the highest level that you can possibly get. And so when you're coming off of one of those, that's a wild time to come off of one of those types of drugs. This is the synthetic
Yeah.
drugs. So it's not quite that level, but it does the same. Like the chemistry is kind of the same in your brain, right? And
Right.
I'm not a neurologist or anything like that, so I can't speak definitively on these things. But just as a counselor, like seeing this and seeing how like it could be with pornography, it happens as well a lot with that, because that's
Yeah. A
your
lot of
body is
addiction around that
engineered.
too.
Yeah, your body is engineered to want that,
Yeah.
to procreate. Most of us are, at least.
Yeah.
And so when someone's addicted to that, man, and like everything else, like they can't make decisions well. Their relationships aren't really that good because they don't get the same happiness and joy from it.
Yeah.
And so it's
It's
kind of wild
crazy.
how it impacts everything. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So that's kind of a layman's term of it. So
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that like cardboard can have that same impact as all of these other things we're talking about. But they've designed it, they've engineered it in a way that really just scratches an itch for a lot of people.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we have a few more topics to cover, so I want to get try to keep us on track because we just hit the hour mark, but it's fine. We can definitely go over. How do you view gambling like mechanics? Well, you mentioned that you haven't really experienced breaks firsthand, but even like things like repacks or
Yeah.
chase products, how do you view some of these things from a mental health standpoint? Like from a clinician's perspective, where's the line between entertainment and something that can cause real harm? And what risks do these mechanics pose, especially for vulnerable younger collectors, those
Mm,
kids who are so incredibly impressionable and look up to their favorite athletes or influencers or creators, to make purchasing decisions even at a young age.
yeah. I think that's all going to be subjective for the individual.
Yeah,
For me, if I lose $5 on something, I feel like I've done a terrible thing.
yeah,
I don't even feel like it's entertainment. I just feel like, oh crap, I can't do that. I can't afford to do that anymore.
yeah.
Um, for other people, they may view it as entertainment, and there's a certain level, and so it's really up to the individual. And that's the tough thing about this. It's almost like an eating disorder because you can't get away from food. You have to eat, um,
Yeah,
and and I guess you don't have to buy sports cards, but most people have free time to do things with. And
right.
there are good parts of the hobby. There's great parts of the hobby. It's a wonderful hobby if you do it,
Right,
appropriately.
right.
And I would even say breaking. Some people do it responsibly, and there's probably some good breakers out
Right.
there.
It's a sense of camaraderie,
Yeah,
community, enjoyment, excitement, and you could do it with your friends. And yeah, I mean, I think in a nutshell, breaking was never intended to spiral into this gambling like machine, right?
yeah,
In a vacuum, like breaking was actually a great, innovation for the hobby, but it's just sort of mutated into
yeah,
this horrible activity that has just ruined people's lives. So
yeah,
it's just about like taking a step back and creating layers to help prevent people from going down these dark paths.
yeah. And it's. I think it's one of those things where I think it needs to be if you're doing it in the shadows, if you're spending money in the shadows, and and you have a family, obviously, or someone that's you're accountable to,
Mhm.
um, and you don't want them to find out, I think that's probably a good sign that you might need to talk with someone that you might be doing something that's a little overboard.
Yeah,
Um, but again, I think it's very subjective. I think repacks. I I've seen like Arena Club, all these places that have. I think these are
yep,
fairly new. I saw a guy today spend $1,000 on some and I get it. They're doing content with it, and and so I get that part of it to a degree, but also I think that he bought $1,000 pack and he got like a $500 card. And I'm like, oh, that would shake me. That would absolutely shake me. I appreciate him doing it. Like I get it. I get the allure of. I mean, we did this. I did this when I was 12. It's technically gambling to go buy a $2 pack of cards and want to get something big out of it. I don't think I was technically collecting. I was hoping to get a Frank Thomas, I guess, but I was also really hoping I got that, gold signature Michael Jordan
of
card.
course. Yeah, why? Yeah, that's just like you're. That's just you being a human being at the end of the day.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. Um, but so yeah, I think it's a slippery slope when we start putting parameters on other people with what they do with their money. If that makes
Right.
sense. I think if people are in the shadows and aren't honest about it with people that they love or people that it could possibly hurt, I think that's when there's probably an issue.
Yeah, that's what we talk about is like once it starts affecting your relationships, I mean, finances is one thing, but when it's affecting your loved ones, your spouse, your kids, that's when it starts to become truly insidious. I know I keep using that adjective, but I can't really think of another one that better describes the state of the hobby at times,
For
and
sure.
sort of the position that people end up in. I mean, we're talking about some serious things here, some heavy things. You
Yeah.
mentioned the suicidal thoughts. Like, there was a guy that mentioned last week in our weekly support meeting that he had a close friend. I think he said it was his best friend, commit suicide
Mm.
a little over a year ago over Pokemon cards, and that's just like unfathomable. But it's the reality, and we just have to look out for the warning signs. So, on that note, what and you mentioned a few of them, but would you say like a red flag or a warning sign looks like for someone you think might be in trouble? If you were like observing a collector's behavior, let's say, what signs would make you think this person might need help or support?
Um, I think, and again, everyone makes different salaries. Every everyone has different play money. But for me, as like from like the addictive side, if you aren't able to pump the brakes for at least like a week, maybe longer, and just say, okay, let's reorganize, let's take a step back and figure out, is this the right thing to be doing? Does my wife know? Um, am I being honest with her about it, or am I just going crazy and trying to recoup? If you're trying to chase the dragon and get the next big thing, I think that's really where some red flags would come up. Is I'm trying to catch that feeling again for a hit, um, and I think the line is so blurred between uh, an addiction to the hobby and also, is it still collecting, which is the question you asked me. So it's a hard line. It's People have to be self-aware, and I know it's very hard in a day like today, especially when you're getting inundated with apps and all these things, and you have a community that likes spending a crap load of money on cards. But being self-aware, like able to actually take a breath and say, okay, what is my life? Am I going to be like the card guy for the next 20 years and just being a whatnot? Like, is that what my life is going to be? Or do I
Yeah,
have value in other places? Like, how's my fatherhood? How am I being as a father, as a husband, all these things? And so,
right.
um, and again, that's a subjective thing. Some people don't. Some people think being a father for just putting the kids to bed is fine, and so I don't think that way personally. And so I had to make that change for myself, um, because I was constantly scrolling things when I was around like 2020,
Yeah,
and
a lot
so
of people got sucked in
yeah,
around that
so
time.
I think, like I said, red flags, wanting to hide it is a big one. Not wanting to be honest about it is a big one.
Yeah,
Uh,
secrecy, lying.
Secrecy, and not being willing to just take a break,
Yeah,
and kind of recognizing, like seeing it from a non-hobby person's perspective. You know what I mean?
right.
Like if you were to tell someone at a random restaurant, hey, I spent this amount of money on cards this week, and their response is, what are you talking about? I didn't know that was a thing. Like if it gets to that point, maybe taking a
Just
break.
taking a step back, reevaluating like what you're doing.
Yeah, because we all get into our silos. We all get
Yeah.
into we all forget about how, uh not nerdy, that's the wrong word. We forget about how small our hobby is. I know it's growing technically, I think. But we
Oh, it's
forget about,
growing.
yeah. Um, but just yeah, I think if you were to tell yourself 5 years ago, I spent X amount of dollars on this, what would 5 years ago you say to you now? Maybe that's a valid question to ask yourself, possibly.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to give a quick shout out to the guys that have been commenting in our live chat. You guys have been great tonight, just sharing your insights and thoughts. I'm so glad that we had this premium version now, so we could take advantage of the engagement. SSC King says, "Good point. Trailer priorities and boundaries. That's what it's all about. Just setting personal boundaries, making sure that you have your priorities in order. It's just truly important that you take self inventory and that you're self reflecting, making sure you're doing the right thing." All right, we're gonna transition over to our final segment here, and we're gonna call that "Bridging Collectors and Clinicians." So, what can the mental health field learn from hobby culture? What do you think therapists and mental health professionals could potentially gain by understanding this world a little bit better? Are there certain aspects of community or shared passion that you think they could potentially incorporate into their own work?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot to learn. I want to get a look at you guys' handbook that you use, but I think there's still a lot to learn. I think there's a lot of parallels between gambling and what goes on with card breaks and things like that. But I still think it's such a new, like I said, I think the sports card community is kind of siloed. Like if I were to tell my colleagues I'm having a podcast with you tonight to talk about this, and they asked me what it was about, and I was like, well, it's about sports cars, and people, they can't stop buying sports cars. They're addicted to it, and they've spent a lot of
Right.
money and ruined families. But what? That much? Who spends that much money on sports cars? Like
Yeah.
a lot of that's
The
most
average
of
person
my
just has such a hard time wrapping their head around it.
yeah. Okay, the yellow book. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So this is the recovery guide, and we have sort of two versions here. And I'll send this over to you.
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Tomorrow as a sort of a follow-up. But we have the extended version, which is I believe it's 9 or 10 parts, but we have the tools for recovery, the 3 MDs as we call them, which is really the guiding principles for support and healthier spending and hobby participation. We call them mental detox, money discipline, and making meaningful decisions. We have our community commitment, and then it gets into each part when spending turns, the cycle, momentum versus intention, defining recovery, the 12 steps, which are adapted from Gamblers Anonymous and repurposed for Collectors MD. We have community and accountability, financial clarity, emotional detox, staying grounded. And then, of course, the 20 questions, which basically, again, is adapted from GA and tailored for compulsive spending and collecting. And the idea here is that you read through these 20 questions when you first join us. And if you answer yes to even just one of these questions, then you're, definitely in the right place, and you're not
Mhm.
alone. We're here for you. We have guidance for new members, and closing. And so then there's an abbreviated version that we use for our meetings, just so it gives us the opportunity to sort of read through this, summarize it, take that personal inventory before we open up and share. But it just kind of keeps us in check and make sure that we're
Yeah,
staying grounded in what we're doing here, why we're doing it. So it's really really important part of recovery. It's
great.
not like it's not necessarily like some of these other anonymous programs where they're kind of rooted in religion and faith and things like that, but it does serve as a really really strong building block towards you know um, the recovery and your path to getting or going in the right direction with your life, no matter where you are in your journey. So,
Yeah,
highly recommend checking it out, and
yeah,
um, absolutely feel free to pass it along to whoever you think might serve beneficial for.
yeah. So that looks great. So back to your question, I think what therapists can learn is that this is probably a tsunami that's about to really dump on America very quickly, especially with. I mean, I saw some national videos, and there were, you see these things with 12-year-old kids with boxes of cards that are $500,000. I'm like,
Right.
there's no way these kids, like, these are not these kids' cards. That cannot possibly happen. Um, but these same kids are the ones that are showing this stuff on TikTok to their friends, and you know, and it's cool to have these nice cards. And then it gets the Pokemon and all those other things too, TCG stuff. But um, I think with gambling and it being everywhere, it's just going to get worse. And honestly, with me talking about sports cards in my house, my kids don't have phones and won't probably until they're 16 or 17. But uh, that algorithm will follow over to them, and they will see the stuff on TikTok or whatever, and whatever social media they have. And so it's coming for them. And
Yeah.
so Uh, I think therapists can learn. I think there's a lot to learn. I think there's obviously some parallels, but uh, I think it's going to be a much bigger issue than it already currently is, for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially as it pertains to gambling as a whole. This is just sort of one sector of that conversation. I think this next generation is really
Yeah,
the ones we have to look out for. They're being conditioned at such a young age to believe and understand that this culture is so normal,
yeah,
and that it's totally fine to take your life savings or 401k and reinvest it in things like sports cards or Robinhood. I mean, you see the horror stories we see going on with day trading, especially with young kids, investing on margin and things like that, and then like the fallout from that. I mean, it's really, really scary and dangerous,
yeah.
and we have to look out for each other at the end of the day.
And
I
you only
can't
hear the
stress
good
that
stories.
enough.
You only hear the good.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You only see the highlight reels, and that's another thing, like, that sucks people in. People see on their feeds, look at this $250,000 Jaden Daniels card that was just sold to the owner, the owner of the Commanders at Fanatics Fest, and you got the seller standing there with the owner and Jaden Daniels himself, and they got the card, and it just looks like a Cinderella story for this guy. And but at the end of the day, like, that is just one of so many individuals that are involved in the hobby. You can't look at every single win or every single come up and just be under the impression that that can be you, because that's just not setting realistic expectations.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. Um, how can we make it easier for collectors to get help before it's too late? Like, what barriers currently exist, do you think, that keep collectors from seeking help? And how can we lower those barriers and make the process more approachable? And this is like beyond just Collectors MD. I'm not trying to like fish for compliments or have you say something like, well, you can just hit up Collectors MD. I mean, like, before Collectors MD even entered the conversation, like, what are some things that we could do um, on our own
Yeah.
to you know prevent ourselves from falling into these traps?
Well, Fanatics will never do it, so I wouldn't expect that. um, I think, like we talked about before, being honest and open with other collectors, and I think taking you know a snapshot view from 50,000 feet from 5 years ago and saying, would I have ever thought that spending $1,000 a night on cards was appropriate for my life 5 years ago? Like, was that ever something? And how it's just become normalized. And it's like,
Yeah,
how did this become the thing that was normalized? And it's like we talked about before. We live in a sliver of time where you can gamble, where you can get credit up the wazoo,
yeah,
and it's legal, and it's just wild. And so all that to say, I think how to get it out there more. I think people like me can do a better job of not advertising, but at least if people don't know there's groups, then they don't know there's groups, and they think they're alone still.
yeah,
And so uh, I think having guys like Dan the Cardman, because people that watch Jeff Wilson, I think they probably know they have a problem, but they live in fantasy land a lot of the times. Um, and so, but yeah, I think it starts small, like anything, starts organic, and then hopefully a lot more people come to realize there's a space for me here.
sure.
Um,
No, I hear you. I do want to say, I think there are some really polarizing individuals in the hobby. Jeff is definitely one of them. I think he brings an interesting perspective, but it also can be, a little bit scary and slippery for some folks, especially young kids. And I've spoken to Jeff at great length about what we're doing with Collectors MD, and he actually firmly believes in what we're doing.
that's
So
awesome.
much so, yeah,
Sorry,
so
Jeff.
much so. No, it's all good, man. Like, honesty is so incredibly important. But I don't want to have this conversation and then suddenly in a week from now you're like, what the heck? Because I actually just booked an episode with Jeff Wilson for next week, so I'm going to be on his show
Heck yeah.
next Thursday. And yeah, no, I think it's going to be a really great opportunity to leverage his platform and his audience, or reach his audience, I should say, not leverage his audience, but reach his audience, and share what we're doing, what we're building with Collectors MD, because so many, like you said, so many of his followers, of the people watching his content, might be in these cycles, these patterns that we're talking about. And we just want to make sure that we're spreading the word and getting in front of as many people as we possibly can before it's too late. So folks like Dan the Card Man, Jeremy Lee, Denny Cards, like I'm only shouting out a handful of them, but they have been such great supporters and advocates who have reached out to me, I've had conversations with. They've graciously brought me on their platforms, their shows, and we've talked about a lot of these things in great detail. And I'm super grateful and just proud that we've been able to make waves in the hobby in such a short time. Because at the end of the day, like I keep saying, this is so much bigger than me. It's so much bigger than Collectors MD. These conversations are long overdue, and we just need to be having them more and more in the right places, and making sure that it's reaching the right audiences. So with that, we do have one final question here, and then we're going to get into my favorite part of the show, which is our rapid fire closeout, where I ask you a series of questions and you just sort of hit me with the first thing that comes to mind. Kind of keep it lighthearted to close it out. But just real quick, back to the bridging collectors and clinicians topic. What does a healthy collaboration between peer support and clinical care look like to you? And if you could design the perfect support model for collectors, one that blends peer accountability and licensed mental health care, what would it look like in practice?
Oh boy. I think group work is very, very valuable in this space. If you're coming to me as an individual, I can work with you on things that possibly got you to where you are. I think a lot of people that are compulsive gamblers probably have something in their childhood where, maybe they didn't feel like they measured up. Maybe they felt like they had to prove themselves. Maybe they were always on the outside looking in, and then, gambling came around, and I can control this. I can fix this. And this gives me control over situations. And now I feel like I'm measuring up because I've got to win, or I've got, I can parlay this into something else. And now I'm part of the club. Right. And so those things are hard to do, I think, in a group. They're not hard to do, but it's more difficult to bring those conversations about in a group. That's why I think individuals important sometimes, but I think most of that work comes in a group, honestly.
Yeah.
It's hard to BS people that have been through what you're going through.
Right.
And you probably know that from GA, because if you're honest, they'll know if you're not being honest. They'll know if you're telling half truths or being 100% honest, and they'll call you out on it. And so I think the group work is good because everyone starts at a certain place. Everyone has been where you are if you're coming to a group and you're coming hands open and ready to do work. If you're coming kind of with your hands half closed around something, they're going to call you out on it and say, you got to submit this before you're ready to change your life around. And so I think I rambled a little bit, but I don't know if I answered your question totally or not.
You brought up some really, really great points.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good, man. I truly appreciate your insight, your intellect, your honesty, your vulnerability. I think a lot of what we talked about tonight is really going to resonate with our listeners, whether they're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, which I'm really excited to share. By the way, we are now syndicating across all major platforms, so you could listen to this show wherever you're consuming your hobby related content. But no, Traylor, truly so grateful for you joining us and taking the time to share your perspective. We will get into our final segment here, which is the rapid fire closeout. Again, I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to hit me with the first thing that comes to mind. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. First card you ever owned or remember buying?
Oh, geez. I don't remember. Holy crap. Some Frank. So my best card I ever pulled from a pack when I was a kid was a Frank Thomas Leaf. Like it was like a CD card. It was like one in, the ratios are always in the back pack odds. It was like 1 in 90 packs. I thought I won the lottery.
Wow.
It was
Dude,
cool.
the big hurt was the real deal. I got a quick side note story about the big hurt. My buddy and I were at Hillstone in Manhattan. This was like maybe 2 years before the pandemic, so it must have been like 2018. And we're hanging out by the bar waiting for our table, and in comes this big dude, big, just jacked dude who looked exactly like Frank Thomas. I was like, I'm telling you that is Frank Thomas. And so much so where we went up to him and I'm like, the big hurt. Can we get a picture? And he's like, absolutely. And he stood there and he took a picture with us. And I was so elated because, he was an idol of mine. And later on that evening, I'm looking a little closer and I'm like, dude, that is not Frank Thomas. That is just some guy who looks like Frank Thomas who comes up, who has people come up to him all the time and ask him for a picture. I mean, this dude was like sprawling. He was like he was like 6'5", just jacked out of his mind. He had the bald head. I mean, he looked the part. It was crazy. But I've been two-timed once or twice by celebrities in Manhattan. It happens all the time. All right, back to the rapid fire questions. One card in your personal collection that you'll never part ways with.
I have a couple. So I collect Topps Venezuelan cards. And I have a couple Roberto Clementes from that they're very short printed. They were made in Venezuela. And they kind of they were all glued on albums. They kind of make their way back to America somehow. Someone has some connection there and he keeps selling all these cards. I'm like, man. But yeah, probably those. I like them all.
Love it. A player or team that's your guilty pleasure to collect? Frank Thomas, though.
So I feel bad about this. King Griffey Jr. I've started collecting his '90s stuff. I've collected all of it to where it's gotten to where I now feel uncomfortable spending money on it because some of his '90s stuff is just so expensive. It's great. The cards are different in the '90s. They're just great. Yeah. They're much different. When you have companies competing, Upper Deck, Fleer.
Yeah. You gotta respect the kid. And he has one of the prettiest autographs in the game. We really collectors really appreciate good penmanship. So I would say Ken Griffey's probably top 3 for me in terms of autographs and just like collectability. He's, as far as baseball goes, it would be him, Jeter, and probably Mariano. Who unfortunately just tore his Achilles in that Legends game. I mean, the Yankees can't do anything right now, but that's okay. We'll get him next year when our man Garrett Cole is back.
That's right.
Or we sign or trade for Paul Skeens. But we'll see about that. What is one word to describe your collecting style?
Eclectic.
Love it.
Yeah.
What is a mental health tip you wish every collector knew?
I think that, we talked about dopamine a little bit, but you get the same rush from a who's Josh Allen rookie auto that comes in the mail that you would get from a $3 Michael Jordan card that looks really cool. It's the same exact thing.
I couldn't agree more. It's all about finding what you like, and you could truly find cards that are very inexpensive and scratch that same itch, so to speak. So, they obviously add up, so don't go overboard with it, but there are ways to curb sort of your appetite, if you will.
I think let me add one more.
Yeah.
Don't have one case. And if you're just you're compiling things after that where you're like, I get some people do it for an investment, but for people in this space who we're talking to, have a box, and that's your box.
That's your box, man. Yeah. That's what I always say. A curated collection is so much more meaningful than a high volume collection. Like I've been on both sides where I collected sneakers, 500 plus pairs. I'm now down to maybe a couple dozen at most. And I appreciate them and love them so much more than I did when I had that many. One person doesn't need that much crap. Like with the cards, I had over a dozen Zion cases filled to the brim. Just so unnecessary. When you curate, when you refine your collection down to your favorite pieces, you realize that less is more. And, that card that you wanted to, chase or buy on eBay, might have been sitting there all along. You just didn't even realize it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of metaphorically.
Oh yeah.
Uh, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received in life or in the hobby?
In life or the hobby. I would say for my life that time is your most valuable resource. That's kind of that's kind of my motto. I feel like I have the perfect job. Um, and it's because I'm able to see my kids and watch them grow up and
It's
spend time
awesome.
with my wife and things like that. And so I love the hustle and grind of working. That's why I kind of have three different jobs, but my brain's kind of like, ADHD a little bit like that. But
Sure.
um, I would say time is your most valuable resource. And that's why when I get a big old pile of cards, I'm like, my wife is not selling this if I get hit by a bus. I hate listing this stuff. If
Yeah.
'Cause it has to be gone at some point, like
Yeah.
we can't
We
take
all
it,
end up we
you
all
know.
end up in the ground, like the cards aren't coming with you.
And people know that, but I think the people that really get it are the ones that take that and make it reality.
Right. 100%. Okay, I got a few more for you. One hobby trend you hope sticks around.
Oh boy. So I don't I I follow the hobby trends a little bit, but more on the why they're bad side. Uh, I think Facebook groups are a pretty unique thing, like King of Junior groups or
Yeah.
Venezuelan tops groups. I think that's pretty cool. As much as I despise
Can
social
really
media,
you can really find your niche.
yeah, and it's I've seen pictures from people at the national and they're all wearing Griffey stuff, and I think that's really really neat. That's their people, and so I think that's really cool. The community it brings.
Love it. And then on the flip side, what is one hobby trend you wish would go away?
Grading everything. I think grading needs to die. I personally, I get the value of it. I get for people, especially flippers. Um, but it's just, I think it's consumed everything. And it's the first thing is it a PSA 10? Will it gem? Will it just like, that's why I like the beat up cards that have drawings on them, like Mickey Mantles with sunglasses on that a kid drew on. I'm like, I love this. Like, imagine the kid that drew this 60 years ago on this card, or like there's vague like racial overtones on Willie Mays cards that I have. I'm like, this probably came from some southern redneck kid down in probably where I'm from.
Yeah.
And he drew this on a Mickey Mantle and he thought it was a clever thing. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's
that to
crazy.
me is like a story with
Yeah.
that card. And like those types of things I just love.
Yeah.
I collect the beat up cards.
Yeah. All right, one last question. If you could give one sentence of advice to your 2020 hobby self, what would it be? One sentence of advice.
Uh, I would say slow down and breathe. It's I spent a lot of money, but I also learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I learned that I need to have money first before I buy something with it. Uh, at that point, I didn't, and it was
Yeah.
just it was savings, but that wasn't
Yeah.
money I intended to spend. But so that kind of morphed into like an eBay business that I have as well.
Mhm.
So I'm able to buy stupid Lego sets that I love. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I live life, and I think you need to make mistakes, and that's part of growing up and part of living life. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily change it. I would just say take a moment and breathe.
Yeah. I
Um,
love it. That
yeah.
that's yeah, it's powerful. All right, so we got a few closing thoughts here. Just as it pertains to your expertise. If someone is listening and is quietly struggling, what's one small step they can take today, and what's something realistic and manageable maybe that they can do right now to start shifting in a healthier direction?
I'm always going to shift back to having people around you and community.
Yeah.
I think having an honest evaluation, and that's hard for some people because some people don't live in reality a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Um, but take all of us have blind spots. Go to a friend, go to if it's your wife, if it's someone, your father, your mother, and maybe just be honest with them and tell them what you're doing. and see what their reaction is. And if it's like, oh my gosh, I never knew this was this, reach out and get help. It's all about community, but I think having those moments and being ready to change is one of the biggest things. Because if you're not ready to change and you're still kind of tiptoeing around it and trying to like do half truths, then you're not going to change. But I think
100%.
being around people who also want to change and are struggling with that is the most valuable thing, I think.
Awesome. And where can people find you or connect with you after this? Specifically for our listeners who want to continue the conversation or learn more about your work, where should they go?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm the only Traylor Disbrow in the world.
You might be.
I'm on Facebook. I don't do a lot on there. I'm on Instagram, but I got that when it was like in 2009, and I haven't done a lot on there. But yeah, you can. So my email address is traydisbrow@gmail.com. Feel free to email me anytime you want.
I'll
I'm
make
more
sure
than
to
willing
include
to
that,
walk
and I
people
think it
through.
already is in there in the description.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to, I love that you're shouting me out, but I want to care for you guys and girls that are involved with this. And I know all of us, like you said, Alex, have our demons and all of us have our struggles and vices. And so this is just one that is kind of new and it's kind of morphed into this wild thing that it is now. And so I really appreciate what you guys are doing on your end of things, Alex.
Thank you, Charlie. I really appreciate that. Do you have any final words for collectors, just about finding balance? If had to leave our audience with one message, what would you want them to remember after this conversation?
Yeah, I think be an individual, find things that you like. It doesn't have to be the newest, greatest thing. Um, like I said, I can buy a $3 card and it be the same rush that I get from buying a $2,000 card. I haven't bought a $2,000 card in a long time, but it's the same thing, and they all go back in the same box anyway. It's kind of
Yeah,
just. So yeah, I would say be true to yourself. Don't be true to anyone
I
else.
love that.
Be true to yourself and collect what you want to collect.
100%. I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. And so, on that note, Trailer, again, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story, not just as a therapist in training, but as someone who's experienced firsthand the highs, the lows, and the very real mental health challenges that can come with this hobby and with collecting. Your honesty and your perspective today, I think a lot of people will agree, we're both powerful and grounding. And I know our listeners will walk away feeling less alone and more equipped to navigate their own collecting journey. So, like Trailer said, if you'd like to reach him, connect with Trailer, or learn more about his work, you can reach him directly at traydisbrow@gmail.com. That's TRADISBROW@gmail.com. Also in the description below. And as always, if you or someone you know is struggling with compulsive collecting, overspending, or the mental toll of the hobby, we invite you to join our weekly Collectors MD peer support meetings. They're every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Our next one will be tomorrow night. It's free, it's anonymous, and it's a safe space to show up exactly as you are. All you have to do is fill out the Google form, again, in the description below. Thank you all for tuning in. For those of you that are watching this after the live, we appreciate you as well. Remember, collect with intention, not compulsion. And we'll see you next time.